If you're currently searching for a new administration job, then it's vital that you have a strong admin CV. This will ensure that you get noticed by recruiters and that you'll land plenty of interviews for the jobs that you want. In this video, I'm going to walk you through my step-by-step process of writing your own administration CV, and I'm going to share some real-life admin CV examples with you. And if you are new to the channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you get access to all of our CV advice and job search videos.
So this guide is going to walk you through step-by-step the process of writing an administrator CV, and I'm just going to quickly go over what I'm going to cover in the guide. So initially I'm going to look at your pre-writing research. So this is a big step that a lot of people miss. It's really just about understanding what you need to be including in the CV. Then we're going to look at the structure and format of the CV. I'm going to look at an example CV, run through it with you, and just look at how we actually lay the CV out for best results. Then I'm going to look at each section in more detail, so starting with the name and contact details at the top, then moving on to the CV profile, which is your introductory paragraph, and then your work experience, so how you actually include work experience if you have any, and structuring each role. And I'm also going to look at what to do if you don't have any experience. Then we're going to look at your educational qualifications and how you go about listing those, and finally the optional section of your hobbies and interests. So the very first step for writing your administrator CV is to do your pre-writing research. And what this is just simply finding out what your target employers are looking for in a candidate. So if you don't understand what your target employers want to see in a candidate, it's going to be very difficult for you to write a CV that appeals to them. So it's really just a simple case of heading over to one of the big job boards. I'm using CV Library here, for example, and running a quick search for the type of job you're applying for. So I've searched for an insurance administrator here, so it's important that you are as specific as you possibly can be. If you generally just search for administrator, you'll get quite a wide range of jobs come up, whereas if you sort of narrow down into your niche, into the type of industry you're applying to, then you're going to get more specific jobs that are going to be more relevant to what you actually want to do, and that means you're going to find the right kind of skills that you need to put into the CV. So we just run a quick search on that, and you'll see it brings up quite a few insurance administrator jobs. So I'll just click on this one. And obviously, if we look at the description here, we've got a goldmine of information that you can use for your pre-writing research. So, this tells you everything about the kind of skills and experience and qualifications that these people are looking for. So you can see assistance administration, warranty administration, data entry, telephone response, call handling, data capture. So these are all really, really good. So you want to sort of scan through as many of these as you can and sort of pick out the skills they're looking for. Focus on the job specific skills, like the things we've mentioned here. Don't worry too much about things like flexible, punctual, team player, work under pressure. Those are what we call sort of generic skills, and they apply to most jobs. So you're going to find that most jobs need those. You want to focus on the specific jobs that the administrating employers are looking for, so that you can get those into your CV. So scan through as many of those jobs as you can, and pick out all those sort of key skills and make a list of the most in-demand skills, and then you'll build yourself a nice picture of the type of candidate that people in your industry are looking for, and make a list and keep referring to it as you write your CV, so you know exactly what to write in it. So once you've done your pre-writing research and you've got a good idea of the kind of skills and experience and knowledge that you need to include in the CV, it's time to look at how you're going to structure and format it. So if we start off with formatting, this is an example of an administrator CV here, and as you can see, it's nice and clean looking, it's professional, it's easy to read and scan. And the way you achieve that is by doing the following. Start off by using Microsoft Word or a similar word processing package. If you don't have access to Microsoft Word, you can use something like Google Docs, which is a free version available from Google. I'll put a link to that in the description. Basically, these kind of packages have everything you need to write a CV, all of the sort of formatting and structuring tools, and also the final format that they produce, the document format they produce, is the most widely accepted in the recruitment arena across all industries. Secondly, keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate things. Just white background, black text. This person's got a bit of blue in the headings here, but that's probably about as crazy as you want to go. It's not a competition to create the most amazing looking document. It's literally just about making it nice and easy to read and just ensuring it looks professional. Use breaks, borders and bold headings. So as you can see here, this person's broken up the page with some big blue boulders to make all the sections clear, and they've used headers within their roles as well. And this just makes the document much easier to read, because recruiters and employers, hiring managers, they see lots of CVs, they're very busy, so you just want to make sure that your CV is easy for them to read and they don't have to spend too much time rooting around it trying to find the information they need. Also, for the same reason, break the text up and use bullet points. So don't use big chunks of text because they're hard to read, they'll put people off, and it makes it difficult for people to find specific information within the CV. If you break the CV up like this, it's a much more pleasant reading experience, and recruiters will thank you for it, and they'll be able to find the information you're trying to tell them a lot easier. Keep it to around 2 pages in length. Again, the attention spans and the time that people have in the industry is short, so just keep the CV short as well. There's no point having a 3 or 4 page CV because it just won't get read. If you go under or over a tiny bit, it's not the end of the world, but try and keep it to around 2 pages. And don't use any photos or images. So some people put a photo of themselves at the top of the CV. Unless you work in acting or modelling, there's no need to do that, and it will just waste space. So keep them out of the CV. So once you've got a good format for the CV, you'll then want to go on and start thinking about how you're going to structure the CV, how you will lay it out, what information you'll include, and thinking about putting it in a logical order for recruiters and hiring managers when they're reading your CV. So start with, I'm just going to look at each section as an overview here. I'm going to go into these in more detail as I go through the guide, but I'm just going to give you an overview of the structure right now. So start with the name and contact details at the top. So, you just want to make it clear who you are and how to get in touch with you. And then you will lead with your profile or personal statement, which is sort of like your introductory paragraph or your sales pitch, which is intended to grab people's attention when they first open the CV and make sure they read the rest of it. Then if you're experienced, you'll want to go into your work experience, your career history. If you don't have any experience, obviously you can skip past this section. Then you'll want to have your education listed. So if you're an experienced person, your education will be quite a small section towards the bottom, but if you are inexperienced, if you've just left school or you're a graduate, then your education will be nearer to the front of the CV, and it will be bigger and much more detailed because you'll need to pull more of your skills out from that area to make up for your lack of experience. Then right at the bottom, if necessary, you will need to include a hobbies and interests section. Now, this won't always make a big impact on hiring decisions, especially if you're experienced, but if you're a junior person with little experience, it can be beneficial to expand upon your hobbies and interests. So now I'm just going to walk through each section of the CV in a bit more detail and show you how to write each one. So starting with your name and contact details, use as little space as possible to fill out your name and contact details, because your CV is really designed to sell your skills, your experience, your knowledge. So don't take up too much space with your name and contact details. Simply head with your full name and give yourself a professional title. So this is just a title that relates to the kind of jobs you're applying for. So if you're applying for data administrator jobs, call yourself a data administrator, and it just sets the tone for the CV and lets people know, as soon as they open it, that they've got a suitable person that they're looking at here. In terms of the contact details, just include your telephone number, location, and your email address. That's all that's needed at this stage of the application. And possibly your LinkedIn profile if you have a good one that's worth linking to. Do not add extra information like your full address, your date of birth, your marital status. None of these things are needed at this stage of the application. Really, all you need is a means of the recruiter or the hiring manager getting in touch with you. So your email address and your telephone number is really all you need. So once you've added your name and contact details, it's then time to write your CV profile or your personal statement. Now this is the introductory paragraph at the top of the CV, and the aim of this is to, once a recruiter has opened up your CV and is looking at it, it's your chance to hook them and make sure they read the rest of the CV. It's almost like a quick sales pitch if you're introducing yourself to somebody and you're trying to hold their attention. So keep it short and sharp, provide high-level summary, and sell yourself. So, it's really just about quickly, in a few seconds, giving people the highlights of what you do. Don't go into the nuts and bolts, the details of what you're doing day to day. That comes later when you're doing your work experience. This is just a nice sort of high-level overview. and you really want to tailor it to your target job. So looking back to the research you did when you were looking through the job boards, looking at the in-demand skills, you really want to try and tailor it as much as possible to the jobs you're applying for, and avoid using cliche or generic skills. So some of the things we spoke about earlier, like teamwork and hard work and focus and dedication and things like that, they're good things to have, but they are applicable to most roles. You're trying to sell yourself as an administrator, so you want to be including specific administrator skills, especially at the top of the CV when you've only got a few seconds to persuade people. When you're putting your CV profile together as an administrator, there are a few things that you should focus on, really, that you should be trying to get across to recruiters. Those are relevant qualifications. So this could be anything from, a lot of people like to see GCSEs in maths and English maybe, or some might like specific industry qualifications, or it might be an NVQ in administration. Again, it comes down to looking at the job adverts that you'll be applying for, finding out what's most important to them, and including those qualifications if you have them. Also, if you're experienced, what kind of industries have you worked in? Have you worked in insurance, IT, banking? Let people know, because that's going to be an important factor in deciding whether they want to hire you or not. And obviously your admin duty experience. So, do you have experience of data entry, phone handling? This will vary again widely depending on the kind of jobs you're going for, but just make sure at this level of the CV you're including, the most important ones that that your target employers are looking for. And then software and tools used. So, for example, as an administrator, you might use Microsoft Excel, Microsoft Word, particular databases. If from your research you know that those tools are important to people, then it's definitely worth including them at the top of the CV, especially if it's a tool that you're going to be using a lot in the jobs. And if you've got experience, again, who do you support? So are you supporting directors, senior managers? Who does your work actually benefit? So be picky when you're writing about these things. Obviously, again, all comes down to your pre-research. Look at what people are looking for and only include the most important things, especially here at the top of the CV. And again, avoid cliches at this stage as much as you can. And if you really want your CV to make a big impact when it's opened, it's worth adding a core skills section underneath your profile. Now, as you can see here, this is a really simple bullet point list of your most in-demand skills. So what it does is it highlights your in-demand skills. Those points jump off the page, so that as soon as your CV is opened, a recruiter or a hiring manager can get a really good overview of all of the kind of skills and knowledge that you have that are applicable to the jobs that they're looking for. And it's easy to tailor these. So, if you're spending an evening applying for jobs and you're applying to 10, 20 jobs, it's going to be difficult to, tailor the CV for each one. But if you have a core skills list like this, you can just swap some of these points around to match each job more closely, because although all the jobs you're applying for are going to be similar, they're obviously going to have differences. And if you've got the ability to go in and quickly change these points to match them more closely, then every application you make is going to be that little bit better, and it's going to increase your chances of getting called in for interview. So now I'm going to take a look at how you go about adding your work experience and structuring each role. Now, and I'm going to look at this also from the point of view of an experienced candidate, but also how to do it if you've got no experience as well. So if you have experience, then adding work experience should start just after your profile or core skills section. Start with your most recent role. Put plenty of decent detail in the recent roles and less detail in older roles. Now, the reason for this is that employers will tend to be more interested in your current or most recent work, because that tends to be the best way of assessing your current capabilities. So they want to read lots about what you've been doing in the last year or so, and they won't be so interested in stuff that you did 5 or 10 years ago. So, older roles, you can sort of summarize them down. If you've got no experience, then really you need to try and be creative. So, you can add volunteer work you do, placements you've done at work, personal projects, school projects. Just try and pull out some things that might be relevant and add them as roles. If you've got nothing at all to do, then you can skip this section, but try and be as creative as you can and get some stuff in there. But generally speaking, if you are inexperienced, you can sort of make up for this by including more detail in your education section anyway. Now I'm going to take a look a bit more closely at how to actually structure and write each individual role. Now, if you've got administrative support, then obviously that's great. Then those are the roles you need to be writing about. But if you're being more creative and you have no real sort of paid admin experience, then you can do the same with your voluntary roles or your school projects or personal projects. Now, when doing that though, what I would suggest is trying to pull out as many relevant skills as possible that relate to the jobs you're applying for. So, head each role with a bold heading that just breaks the page up and lets people know that this is where the role description starts. Add the dates of employment, the company you worked for, and the job title there. And then underneath that, you want to follow up with an outline that gives an overview of the role. So you should talk about the sort of company you work for, and what the sort of general overall goal of the role was. Then you want to delve down into the detail of the role. So this is where you want to go into a lot more detail, speaking about the activities you did, who you interact with, the sort of skills that go into the work, what packages are you using in terms of software and tools, who are you liaising with, and how is your work feeding into the overall running of the business. And then under that, it's good to round up with some achievements if you can. So if you've done anything really impressive that's had a big effect on your employer or your colleagues, then it's certainly worth mentioning. So for example, here this person's just put they created a new document management system which decreased document access time by 25%. So that shows you they've gone out of their way, they've shown initiative, they've improved the process, and by doing so they've been able to decrease resource time within the business, which is obviously beneficial to the employer. So just think about things you might have done. It could have been something that's saved costs, or something that's helped generate revenue, or just speed up times, whatever it might be. Try to get something in there, try to get some numbers, quantify them. So once you've written about your work experience, towards the bottom of the CV now, you should look to be adding your educational qualifications. Now, it's a really simple section. It's just a case of listing out your qualifications. So, where you studied, what the actual qualification is, and possibly the date as well. If you've got anything that is completely irrelevant, then it's probably best left out. So, for administrative roles, things like your GCSEs, A-levels will probably be important, degrees, and any specific administrative qualifications. But if you've got, for example, a BTEC in leisure and tourism, and you're not applying in leisure and tourism roles, then it's probably best to leave those out and save space for the more important ones. Keep this section brief if you're experienced. So if you've got 10 years administrative experience, then there's probably no point in writing reams and reams about the education, because recruiters will be mostly interested in reading about your experience. However, if you don't have much experience, if you're fresh out of school or university, etc., then it probably is best to expand on this section rather than having a list like we have here. Talk about the modules you did within each of these qualifications, and expand to talk about some of the skills you learned, the projects you did, etc., to make up for the lack of experience. At the very bottom of your CV, you can add a hobbies and interests section, but it's a totally optional section. You don't necessarily need to. So I'm just going to look at whether or not you should personally add hobbies to your CV, because it will come down to your personal situation. So if you have little or no experience, then it can be a good idea to add hobbies to the CV, because if you don't have much to write about in the way of your work experience, then it makes sense to use other areas of your life where you can possibly withdraw transferable skills and show people that you have skills to do those jobs, even if you've not done those jobs in the past. And also if you have relevant hobbies. So I'm not sure what a relevant hobby to an administrative job would be. Perhaps you volunteer at the weekend for a charity and you keep records for them on a spreadsheet, something as simple as that. That could be worth mentioning because it relates to the jobs you're applying to. And if you have impressive hobbies, this is probably like not as relevant to administrative roles. But if you run marathons or you play a sport or something like that, then it can be worth adding that to the CV. It's not technically relevant to the jobs you're applying for, but it just sort of shows something a bit about your character. If you're going to add a hobby like that, probably don't write about it too much. Maybe a line or two at the bottom of the CV if you have space. But if you have plenty of experience in your administration, then it's probably not worth writing about your hobbies, because, you know, if you've got, say, 20 years admin experience, then recruiters won't be very interested in reading about, you know, what you do at the weekend. And if you have regular hobbies, so, you know, if you like watching TV and eating out, then, you know, that's fine, but it's not exactly going to make a massive impression to a person who's looking to hire admin staff. So, you know, just assess your own situation and decide whether or not you should be adding hobbies to the CV. And if you do, just make it a small section towards the very bottom of the CV. So that brings me to the end of this guide. I hope you found it helpful. Before you send your CV out to anybody, don't forget to proofread it, because, you know, grammar mistakes, typos, spelling mistakes, you know, they can cause people to doubt your professionalism. So make sure there are none in your CV. If you want some more help on this subject, obviously check out some of our example CVs on standoutcv.com. In particular, we have an administrator CV example with a guide. I'll put a link in the description. And, you know, watch more of our videos. I've got lots of CV advice videos here, more on sort of general CV writing and some job search tips as well. So I hope you found that useful, and good luck with your job search.